Hey there, Storm fans. Bryant Cook. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's The Epic Storm deck showcase, and today I am here to bring you my modern Lurrus Lotus Breach deck. I hope you enjoy it, and remember, we will have more of these coming every weekday until the new year, so check back in, see what other decks I upload. I hope you enjoy them. But let's just kick it off today and hop right in. So, these twiddles, these are just wow. They're so nice looking. I said beautiful a million times in yesterday's video. I'm going to try to say something different today. But wow, these look way better in person, if I'm being completely honest. The Rebecca Goy art. And something I secretly love about this is in this deck, Twiddle is Dark Ritual. Because you tap Lotus Field for 3 blue, you twiddle it, you make 2 blue. It's much like Dark Ritual, where you tap a black and gain 3 black, but it costs you 1. So you're still gaining 2 either way. So this is just Blue Dark Ritual. And one thing that I secretly love is the same artist for both Dark Ritual and 7th edition Twiddle. So Blue Dark Rituals in both formats. I got a pretty good deal on these, if I'm being completely honest. I had Dustin Gore help me dig these down in Japan. So I ended up getting them, I believe, around $45 or $50 each, when in the US prices were skyrocketing on English foils to about 75. So shout outs to Dustin Gore, who did me a huge favor. Dreams Grip. I just got these back recently from James Nelson from getting signed. And James just was really quick on the turnaround. I think it was about a month that they were gone. And these are also just gorgeous cards. I think I bought 3 of these at once from Haruya, and then the 4th I had to buy from Magic Card Market through a friend because I couldn't find a 4th. Not a whole big story here, but, you know, a secondary twiddle effect to the actual alpha card twiddle. Consider this card used to be Sleight of Hand, and with, I believe it's Midnight Hunt that this card was printed. Yeah, it's Midnight Hunt. So this card is just a strict upgrade over Sleight of Hand because it puts a card to your graveyard, which helps you fuel your Underworld Breach. So you need to escape. Consider helps with that. There will be games where you don't have a Tome Scour, but you do have a Consider, and I'll go for it with Consider just looking to hit. So Consider is like quite powerful. One thing that I did notice is that on a bunch of new cards, you'll see that it's a little bit stripy with the scans. I'm not quite sure why. When you look at some older cards, you don't really get that, but on the bunch of the new ones you do. So maybe the foiling process is just different. I'm not entirely sure, but I would guess that's the case. Serum Visions. Excuse me. Ben Thompson signed these, obviously, and Ben has always been very quick with turnarounds on signing cards. So if you're interested in getting your card signed by Ben, you just contact them through their website. Ben will sign it, ship it back to you very, very fast. And I've owned these Serum Visions for a while now. I've owned these since, what is it called? Pyromancer Ascension Storm in Modern. So probably 2014, maybe 2013. I didn't start playing Modern until after all the good Storm cards were banned. So Rite of Flame, Preordain, Probe. Well, I guess I was here for the Probe ban. But all the good cantrips were gone. Rite of Flame was gone. Seething Song was gone. So I missed out on a lot of the fun. But I got these Serum Visions around that time frame. Mishra's Bauble. So I talked about this in yesterday's The Epic Storm video, but I'd like to get Cold Snap ones. I just haven't been able to find them. Those are a high priority want for this upcoming year for me. And the thing that stinks about them is that they're signed by Chippy, who just like doesn't really exist. They don't like signing cards. It's been over a decade since they've signed cards, and they're kind of a recluse. They work for Valve at this point, and yeah, so good luck. Everyone is secretly waiting in the sign community for Chippy to open up their doors, sign cards for us, but it's just probably not going to happen. Inquisition of Kozilek. I also talked about these in yesterday's The Epic Storm video. There was a point in which these were up to like $350, $380, and I was seriously considering selling them. I'm so glad I didn't, because they're seeing play now in Lurrus Lotus Breach. The reason that I got them was originally like kind of dumb, but excuse me, I just ate breakfast. Kind of bad, but you know, it worked out. I still use these all the time, and I love them. One thing I'd like to note is that the scans on these are super dark. So I'm sorry, these are all scans, and it's just, they're not this dark in person. Force and Negation, I just picked these up. I missed the signing because I owned 3, but I didn't have my 4th yet. So I did pick up the 4th, I'll be honest, specifically for the deck showcase. I mean, I was going to get a 4th eventually, but I was like, I just need to buckle down and get the 4th. So I ended up picking up the 4th. I missed the signing, but Paul Scott Caravan they'll sign again this year. I'm not super worried about it. But yeah, Force and Negation, just a really good upgrade to Lurrus Lotus Breach recently, stopping all of the main deck Blood Moons, but also stops things like Hammer from just killing you on turn 2 when you tap out for Wishclaw Talisman or Alpine Moons or whatever. Force has just been really, really powerful, so I hope it's here to stay. Wishclaw Talisman, the Epic Storm staple. And yeah, I get a lot of messages from people that are like, why don't you just play green for Sylvan Scrying? Well, green for Sylvan Scrying doesn't get Underworld Breach. It doesn't get the main deck Tome Scour. It doesn't get Twiddle. Wishclaw Talisman literally does it all. And that's why we're playing it. It's just so powerful in this deck. I don't see why you'd want to play something like Sylvan Scrying. So if you haven't, definitely test it out. And it'll be... Oh, so another thing. I own roughly 40 Japanese foil Wishclaw Talisman. When it came out, nobody believed in this card. So every single time I would place an order from Haruya, I would buy 8 Japanese foils because they cap you at 8. So what I would do is I'd like place an order, I'd pick up 8. I'd place an order, I'd pick up 8 because they were literally $1 each. And now I own roughly 40 of them. I'm going to sit on them. I'm not selling them because I think that one day this card is going to be worth a bunch of money. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think if it's, in my eyes, it's a better Infernal Tutor, especially for formats like Commander or EDH. So I would expect that its price trajectory to go up over time. And Darken signs through a bunch of group signings. There's going to be one next month with Matthew Schneider. You can find that information in the description down. Oh, you can't see the hand. Description down below. Underworld Breach. Lee Saiwan, I'm sorry, I just butchered that. But I mailed to them myself. After I mailed to them, they started doing group signings, but at the time they had yet to do one. I paid like roughly $90 to ship my cards around the world to get them signed. So they're expensive. I do have an extra set of English non-foil signed ones, but I don't know what I'd even ask for them. I asked for the price on them because like I paid so much money and now they're doing group signing, so it feels wrong. I'm probably just like going to shame keep them for that reason. Like it was a lot of money to just get 8 signatures, but hey, these are gorgeous cards. So maybe that'll be my word for the day, gorgeous instead of beautiful. They look way better in person because once again, they did it scan a little bit dark and you can see the lines here as well. But it's just the heart and soul of this Lurrus Lotus Breach deck. And when I started playing the arcane builds, which you'll see a little bit down below, I do have the arcane cards in here. Everyone was so in on Past in Flames, and I was like, why aren't you just playing the best card in the format, Underworld Breach, so that way you can buy back your ideas and mount over and over and over and over. And people are like, no, you don't need to do that. But like once I started testing it, Underworld Breach was just so much better than Past in Flames, which helped us get to this build, because by the time that Wish was printed, I was already on 3 Underworld Breach and I was on 0 Past in Flames. So, you know, small evolutions do lead to more significant changes down the road. And if you're unfamiliar with how this deck works, did I scan? Hold on. I'm going to jump down here a little bit. Okay, so the sign one's apparently in the sideboard. I meant to put it in the main deck. So I have one signed, one unsigned, and I do need to hop into a group signing with Steve Belladin. I have another one, so that way the 2 signatures in this deck will eventually match, because that stuff drives me crazy. And so if you're unfamiliar with how this deck works, is you want to Tome Scour yourself and then Twiddle. So you have a Lotus Field in play, you play Underworld Breach, and then you have Tome Scour. And you can scour yourself twice and then use Twiddle to untap the Lotus Field and then escape these cards and do it again. So every time you Tome Scour yourself twice in Twiddle, you create 3 Storm and you put 1 extra card to your graveyard. Eventually, you'll cast Wish from your graveyard to go get a Grape Shot and Grape Shot your opponent for lethal. That's how this deck works. So it's really a 3-card combo of Lotus Field, Breach, Tome Scour, and then technically there's a fourth card in your twiddle effects, but you have 8 of them, and it's pretty rare that you just don't have one. So it technically counts, but it almost doesn't. And then Wish. This is the card that made this version of the deck possible to branch away from the arcane builds. And the reason why is that with Wish, it's a 1-card combo. So, well, 1 card when you already have your Lotus Field. So what happens is you play Twiddle Twiddle Wish, you get Underworld Breach, you Twiddle Twiddle Wish again, and then you get Tome Scour, and from there you can just do your loop. You do need 10 cards in graveyard to start this loop, which is part of the reason that we run Mishra's Bauble. So this is a free card that goes to the graveyard. You get a little bit of scry equity with your fetch lands, so that way you just have more cards in graveyard. And Lotus Field does put 2 lands to your graveyard, so you naturally get a little bit of help there. So it's not as bad as you might think. And people are often like, why do you even bother running Mishra's Bauble? Well, on turn 1, if you go Bauble Serum Visions or Bauble Inquisition, you're getting 2 cards to the graveyard to help you with that very quick kill. So, yeah, Wish was a major upgrade. I was playing 4 for a long time. I've only recently gone down to 3. And part of the reason I went down to 3 was to help add in Force Negation, which has just been, a big boon to this deck. Back to Negation. So I originally bought... Masters 25 or whatever they're called, something 25 ones. And I was like, I'll never be able to afford the real ones that are so expensive. They're like $700 on Haruya. I'm not going to pay that for a Pact to Negation. I'm like currently in the middle of paying back my student loans. I'm probably going to pay them off this month. Knock on wood. And I don't really want to spend that much money on, Pact to Negations. So I wasn't ever going to get them. And then my friend Juan Valdez contacted me. They're like, hey, I will sell you the full set for less than what 2 would cost from Haruya. And it was just an offer that was too good to turn down. So I ended up buying all 4 packs, and then I immediately just posted a bunch of stuff for sale. So if you saw me post like English foil stifles and some other stuff on Twitter and the Facebook groups, that's when I got these. I still have the stifles that I'd like to sell. They're worth like $1,000 and I don't want to own them. So if you want English foil stifles, hit me up. But yeah, so now I own foil Japanese Pact to Negations thanks to Juan. Thank you. Lotus Field. I only recently got these back from John Avon. I had to piece these together. It was really difficult finding a set. So there was a set on eBay for a long time that had the date stamp on them, but I didn't want that. So I actually had to piece these together. I bought all 4 of these separately, and it just took a really, really long time to get them. I bought them when you could still play Underworld Breach in Pioneer. So I've had these for a little bit, but it took a while to get there. And then John was nice enough to sign them this year, and they just came out super well. I love that huge signature with the thick marker. If you've seen a lot of John signatures in the past, they tend to be pretty small with a thin marker, but I love it. Like, this just looks so great to me. And these have quickly become one of my favorite cards, so I love Lotus Field. I know it's a relatively new one, but I just love playing with it. Shelly Wan, Misty Rainforest. I talked a little bit about these in the video yesterday. She's only signed like twice throughout history, and I was lucky enough to get in on one of them. I think that the signatures could probably be a little bit better if I'm being honest, but it is what it is. They're signed. I'm happy with it. Scalding Tarn. Jack Stanton got these done before he disappeared. Pretty happy about that. I also covered that in yesterday's video. I've owned these since 2010. Ish. Like, I owned Japanese foil ones when I top aided Grand Prix Columbus a million years ago. So I've had a bunch of these for a while. I own 6 of them total because I hate swapping cards. So 2 live in the Epic Storm and then 4 live in my modern decks. So yeah. These polluted deltas are from the Epic Storm mostly. I played 2 there, so then 2 could live here. Eventually, I'd like to get the matching flooded strands, but I don't know if I'll ever realistically be able to afford it. They're roughly $4,000 each now, and I am not rich. For what it's worth, I'm a web designer. I make a reasonable amount of money every year, but $4,000 is a little bit steep for my blood. Maybe if YouTube ever really picks up one day, but it's kind of tough to justify buying fetch lands or when I could buy power. I don't know. But yeah, flooded strands, they're eventually on my to want list. That said, I actually really like the art of the Khan's Fetch lands, and I'm not just saying that because I don't own Flooded Strands yet. I truly, and I talked about this in yesterday's video, I do like the art on a lot of the Khan's Fetch lands. And when you look at the original art for Flooded Strand, it's terrible. You can barely see anything. It's so washed out. And here you at least have some vibrant colors, a decent amount of contrast. So I think that these are secretly much better art, but people are so snobby about Khan's Fetch lands. It is what it is. Therese Nielsen Islands. I know that it's a hot topic to like Therese Nielsen art these days, but I've literally used Invasion Basics the entire 20 years that I've played Magic the Gathering. I chose these basics as like an 11-year-old kid. So I've used them the entire run. I have over 350 of these foil. I get it. At some point, I think you need to separate the art from the artist. It's not a Therese Nielsen fandom thing for me. It's a, these islands are Magic the Gathering. I understand if you don't feel the same way. I truly do, but it is what it is. All right, so I do need to improve my watery graves to the real ones. The price on those is pretty steep at this point because original Japanese foil shocklands are just going through the roof this year. I feel like they might eventually bubble and crash, but you never know. They're just so high right now. Like I got this Steam Vents in 2016 for like $150, and now people want over $2,000 for these. So it's just it's had such a steep price trajectory where I don't feel like it's actually reasonable. I feel like it's people hoarding and people trying to abuse the COVID market. So I do think that these will crash eventually, and I'll probably try to get the original printings, but for now these will have to do. Sideboard dividers. All right, so this is the original mini token pack back. You can find these down here. And this one was the Bryant Cook token that I leave backwards. I talked about it in yesterday's video as well, but I just like having an Epic Storm sideboard divider. It makes me happy. So that's what I do, is I just keep my ugly face backwards. Johnny Combo Player. It's me. I am a Johnny Combo Player. So I ended up getting one signed by the artist. Cheaty face. I only have one foil, so this one's non-foil, unfortunately, but it is signed by Alex Bernicini. Alex was so happy to sign these for me, just because Doug Chaffee had passed away in 2001, and, you know, Alex did me a nice favor. Might as well get the most notorious cheater in the game to sign them, and he knows that I don't mean it in a mean way. It's just, it is what it is. Mize. I also talked about this in yesterday's video. When I was a kid, around like 2001 to 2004, Mize was a very common expression for top deck. Like, you mised that, and people would get so salty about it. So I like keeping these like in my sideboard as just like memories of old times and stuff like that. Crowstorm should be a real Magic the Gathering card. They need to quit being cowards and just print it. It's not too good. They just printed Chatterstorm, which is arguably better than Crowstorm. Print it already. And then my foil crows. Rock, paper, scissors, classic stuff. The original Epic Storm mini token pack. You cannot buy this. This does not exist anymore. So these are one and done, but I do have the new mini token pack in a link down below for you to purchase. Slime time. I have 17 of these right now. I'd like to get 3 more, so that way I have 10 for Modern and 10 for Legacy. I'm not currently playing Aven Legacy, so it's not the end of the world, but I would like 3 more. I just haven't been able to find them. These are the first Japanese foil ooze tokens, so that's why I selected them. They're also stars, which sort of works with Ave, right? But the new mini token pack that you can purchase down below has Ave tokens built in with the power and toughness, so you don't even need to fumble around with dice. I just want them for the sake of like having everything complete.
Playing your favorite combo deck in paper just got so much easier with the Epic Storm mini token pack. You can pick one up at theepicstorm.com/shop for $13. It includes 64 double-sided mini tokens. That's 128 tokens total. And they include 10 black, 10 blue, 10 red, 5 green, 5 white, 3 colorless, 20 storm counters. That means that you can count your way all the way up to 20 for Grape Shot, everyone's favorite Stormwind condition, a Galvanic Relay Exile Indicator, 4 treasure tokens for Strike It Rich, and then 10 monk tokens for our vintage friends. It also has Slime Time Live, Ave Progenitor Ooze tokens with the power and toughness already built in to make playing in paper so much easier. No fumbling around with dice. We've got you covered. Make sure to go grab those if you're playing Modern. And then Squirrels versus Goblins, Chatterstorm versus Empty the Warrens, the Battle of the Ages. You definitely need 20 Squirrel tokens and 20 Goblin tokens. You're going to love this mini token pack, I promise. And once again, you can grab that at theepicstorm.com/shop.
The Sideboard, Lurrus of the Dream Den. I actually picked this up for Legacy and then sent it out to get signed, and it took a while to come home. And by the time that it came home, I was playing Lurrus Lotus Breach, so it all sort of just like worked out. And look at this signature. Holy crap, this is just gorgeous. It's just so beautiful. So this card is just chef's kiss. I've already talked about the Pact of Negations, Prismatic Ending. I have these getting signed at the moment. They were actually supposed to arrive here this week, but they didn't arrive in time. And I can't remember if I sent out 4 or 8. But I'm really, really hoping I sent out 8. So, because if I don't, I'm going to have to send another set out to get signed. So I'm really, really hoping that I sent out 8. I just can't remember how many I originally bought. Because I also play 3 in the Epic Storm. Hopefully I sent out the right number. We'll find out when they come back next week. Also, I guess I should probably talk about it. I recently added this to the deck as, like, traditionally the deck has been Grixis, but now we're Grixis Splash Prismatic Ending. And part of the reason why is Force Negation, because Force covers Blood Moon, which is always the biggest problem with Prismatic Ending, is that if they played Blood Moon, Ending doesn't answer it. But Ending answers Alpine Moon, Grafdigger's Cage, Relics, everything else so cleanly. It also hits Sigarda's Aid, and just a bunch of other stuff. So Ending hits everything that is small, and Force Negation hits everything that's large. And that's sort of the idea here, is between the two of them, you have the perfect 1-2 punch. But if a Blood Moon does happen to resolve, you have Void Snare and Echoing Truth that you can sideboard in. This EE is really to get with Wish versus blue decks, so they tap out for their Chalice of the Void on 1, and then you tap 3 lands, you play your Wish, you play E for 0, and then you can blow up the Chalice later. So this doesn't actually get boarded in that often, but it's, it can. It's usually best in the sideboard. But these 2 blue bound spells do get boarded in quite frequently against those Blood Moon decks, because even if they don't have Blood Moon, you can use it to slow down your opponent. I've talked about Tome Scour, Underworld Breach, Grape Shot. So a lot of people are like, why don't you play Thassa's Oracle? Thassa's Oracle doesn't need a storm count. That's technically true. However, games of Magic are more complex than that, right? Like, not everything's just black and white. Most of the world lives in shades of gray. And when you actually play this deck, there will be games where, because Tome Scour, you live on such thin margins that you can't afford to mill your entire deck, Wish, and cast Thassa's Oracle, because you have to cast Twiddles in the middle to create mana. And there will be games where you don't have enough resources to actually clear your decks, and then you're forced to play Thassa's Oracle with like 1 or 2 cards left in your deck, and removal becomes live. And that's sort of the fear there. And I did test Thassa's Oracle for weeks, and it just came up a bunch of times that it was worse than Grape Shot. But on top of that, Grape Shot answers Dothi Voidwalker and a bunch of other things in a pinch, where Thassa's Oracle doesn't really help you there. So I understand that Oracle beats Infinite Life, but like, who plays Heliod anymore? And even if they do, you're faster than Heliod. Why are you worrying about this potential garbage? The other reason why you'd want to play Thassa's Oracle is Blossoming Calm. And I've had a bunch of people test Blossoming Calm against me. It's not that good against the Pact of Negation deck, on top of having all these Inquisition of Kozileks wherever they are. I shouldn't have scrolled up, but Inquisition of Kozilek. Blossoming Calm is not nearly as big of a deal as people make it out to be. So I've tested it a bunch. I really do think that it should be Grape Shot. And then Ave Progenitor Ooze. Ave is the plan to beat Graveyard Hate. So you can twiddle your Lotus Field a few times, cast your Wish, play Ave, and all of a sudden you have a Slime Time army. And that's the idea here behind this Ave Progenitor Ooze. If you're a little bit worried about mana, you could technically run an Empty the Warrens. But I do think it should be Ave. It's just a lot more powerful than Empty. So the reason I run Empty is that I think it's untapped Lotus Field plus Twiddle Twiddle Wish is the perfect amount of mana to empty for 8 goblins. But like, how often does 8 goblins actually win in Modern nowadays? Right? Like, 1 more mana gets you Ave, and then, Ave is more likely to win than 8 goblin tokens in my opinion. Alright, so now we're getting into the arcane cards. These are the extra cards. So here we have Reach Through Miss. I, for the life of me, have not been able to find a fourth one. I talked about it on the Eternal Glory podcast this week. I've searched high and low. Really, TCG Player, Haruya, Tokyo MTG, End All Games, you know, a bunch of different sites. Channel Fireball, MTG Mint Card. There's a bunch of them. There's also a bunch that I'm not saying, like Card Market. Um, and it just doesn't exist because it's kind of a trash card and people don't upload bad cards like this. If you have one, hit me up. I would love to pay you for it. I just haven't been able to find a fourth. Sometimes I play an Pauper and the Pauper Twiddle Storm deck, and I would just like to own that fourth copy. But the big idea behind this arcane build is psychic puppetry. So psychic puppetry has splice onto arcane, which is what this Reach Through Mist is, and it's an arcane instant. So you can attach a twiddle onto your arcane spells. So that means when you cast Reach Through Mist splicing on psychic puppetry, you can untap your Lotus Field, draw a card, and +1 mana. So that's the idea behind how that list runs. And then on top of having psychic puppetry, am I missing? Oh no. I am missing an image. All right, well, I'm not gonna redo this video. Ideas Unbound and Peer Through Mist are missing. Or Peer Through Depths are missing. Ah, bummer. Maybe I'll add it into the page and then you can go back and look at it. But I'm really bummed about that. Okay. But Ideas Unbound, Peer Through Depths, those are also arcane spells that you can attach the psychic puppetry onto. And from there, you can untap your Lotus Field and draw. So essentially, those are free spells because you're paying 3 mana and you're gaining 3 mana while getting an effect. So that's how that deck worked, and eventually you would cast Grape Shot. The problem is that sometimes you would just fizzle. You would Ideas Unbound into triple land, or you'd peer and miss. So that's why the Breach builds are just better, that are more Twiddle Tome Scour focused. It's not that those builds are bad, it's just that they have a fail rate that's much higher. Or a fail rate that exists more, I should say. It's not like their fail rates were super high. But with Lurrus Lotus Breach, a lot of the time you just know that you're going to win, being deterministic or not. And I found that my win rate was high enough with the other build, the Breach build, that it was just better than playing arcane spells. Sleight of Hand. These I got from Tim Cicino back. So there was a time period after the Pyromancer Ascension ban or not Pyromancer Ascension ban, the Probe ban, where I thought that Gift Storm was trash because it relied on creatures, and I just refused to play Gifts and Given. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go play Burn. I played Burn at GP Vegas. I played it for a year or so. I top-8'd a few like SCG Classics with it. Like, Burn was very good to me. And I just like refused to get into Gift Storm. And during that time period, Tim Cicino was making Gift Storm Japanese foil. And at some point, Tim needed to sell the deck. And I was still like 1 foot in on if I wanted to play Gift Storm or not. And Tim was just like, just buy these cards off me. I'll give you a good deal. But a lot of these were super, super warped. Tim really liked curled foils. So what I'm trying to say here is card perfect fits will flatten all of your perfect or all of your cards over time. So these sleight of hands were originally super curled and now they lay completely flat. And that's thanks to hard perfects. So hard perfects, it takes 4 or 5 months for the cards to start to flatten, but they will flatten over time, especially if you keep them compressed in a deck box. So I'd highly recommend hard perfect fits, and I have a link for those down below if you're interested. But yeah, these cards are also just super, super beautiful. I wish that they were still playable, because like they're just, I love 7th foils. I started during Invasion, and 7th came shortly after, and like these are just the pinnacle of beauty and magic in my opinion, 7th foils. Especially the blue cards, because like you can see all the waves and stuff in there, just so, so nice.
Hey,
Alright.
you're still watching. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe. If you're looking to make a purchase from Card Hoarder, TCG Player, or Amazon and are looking to support us, you can open up our description down below, and in there you will find our affiliate links. Those same links are found on the homepage of the Epic Storm. But that's not all. We've included a Card Hoarder button on our website that will load the Epic Storm in your Card Hoarder cart to make life simple for you.
Alright. So we have Malevolent Hermit and Malevolent Geist, I believe it is. I tested these for a little bit. They were really, really good. I'm just not playing them right now because the blue Chalice decks have sort of disappeared out of Modern. And the way that it works is the front half can attack to fairy while giving you mana leak. And then the back half comes back to negate Chalice of the Void because your spells can't be countered. It's just really, really effective versus those blue Chalice decks. It's just they've fallen out of favor. Once they come back, I will add it back into the deck. But for now, I am not playing the Hermit. I talked a lot about Thassa's Oracle already. I do own them because there might be points in which I need to play them. But right now, they're just living in my extras cards. You know, that's fine. I did pick up a second one because when this one was out being signed, I needed one to play Doomsday and Legacy, so now I just own two. And now I need to get this one signed. That's the entire story about why one is signed and one isn't. Additional copies of Void Snare. I need to get these signed by Zach Stella. Yeah, I've already talked about these. They bounce stuff. You can get them with Wish. It's great. I really wish that Chain of Vapor existed in Modern, but it doesn't. Wizards, please get on that. All right, so Aria Flame. Thank you to Anderson Leclerc for getting these signed for me at Star City, what was it? Invitational in Roanoke. Yeah, thanks, Anderson. But back during the early builds, I played a lot of Aria Flame with Arcane and a little bit of the early builds of Lurrus Lotus Breach as well. But originally, they were good enough, and I think that Prismatic Ending entering the format made them worse, but also the format just got faster. Like, Hammer started to exist, and this card is just so embarrassing against Hammer. The juke to beat Graveyard Hate just wasn't good enough. And that's sort of the main reason why it fell out of favor. It also turns off your lures, which is a big deal. Ultimately, it's just not worth it. So I decided to move on. But I think this card just hasn't aged as well as people thought it would in Modern. Also, the Rise of Teferi being this card not quite as great because you're just gating your opponent 10 life over and over. Yikes. We already covered Wish. The copies of Past in Flames from the earlier Twiddle builds, or the earlier arcade builds, I should say. Got these signed by Anthony Jones. I told a long story in yesterday's video about how I did group signings for these. Definitely check out that video from yesterday. I only included one Mind Collapse. I do own a full set, but I didn't want to have 3 red cards awkwardly in a row, so I only scanned one. But something I love about this is that the artist is Bud Cook. I actually signed my name B Cook as well, so when this came back, I was like, oh, B Cooks for life. Yeah, I mean, their signature is a lot cleaner than mine. Mine's like B, C, scribble. But hey, B Cooks. Mind Collapse is pretty good because you can get it off Wish and then cast it first alternate cost of sacrificing a mountain. So one of the things about this deck, though, is you sacrifice your lands to Lotus Field. I don't know why I keep on scrolling up to show you cards to Lotus Field, but we only have the one mountain in the deck. So if you fetch Steam Vents early, you sack it to Lotus Field, and then you can't use Mind Collapse. So the nice part about Mind Collapse is that it can hit a Teferi, and then obviously it can hit creatures. But if you're looking to hit creatures, Slaughter Pact does that without requiring you to sacrifice a land. So it's really only good in metagames that you would need to kill a creature. So if you're on an Arcane build, this might actually be a pretty good card to kill Narset, because then you could continue drawing with Ideas Inbound. By the time you're winning with Lurrus Lotus Breach, Narset literally doesn't matter because you never need to draw cards. So maybe this is playable in the Arcane builds. We've already covered Grape Shot. Thoughtseize. These are playable in metagames where Inquisition might not be as good. And, I mean, I think in order for that to happen, something like Amulet Titan would need to be the best deck in the format. Or Tron would have to be the best deck in the format. But it's good to have in my back pocket. I originally picked these up for the Epic Storm. I told a story yesterday about how I picked them up because Wizards alluded to the fact they were going to ban Gitaxian Probe and Legacy, and I was like, damn, I need to get Thoughtseize. So I ended up getting them early. I got on them before the wave went up in price. So I got them at a pretty good deal. But yeah, and I just love the signatures by Alexi Briscott. So nice. Fatal Push. I was playing these up until the inclusion of Prismatic Ending because they're just so good against Hammer Time. But ending answering things like Relic or Alpine Moon is just so much better. Versatility is huge. I think that's something that people undervalue, is especially in decks with wish boards, how versatility is just king. Because if you're the combo deck and you're boarding in Fatal Push, especially against a deck like Blue Red Tempo, or is it Tempo? I would board in Fatal Push to hit Ragavan to buy me time, and then they'd Alpine Moon me, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm bringing in cards that don't even align versus what the opponent's trying to do to me. So Prismatic Ending, it does hit Ragavan, it hits Alpine Moon, but it also hits like the relics or whatever. So versatility, Prismatic Ending is just so good. It's worth splashing white for. And I covered Slaughter Pact when I talked about Mind Collapse, about how if you want that effect to kill creatures, Slaughter Pact just does it. The reason to run Slaughter Pact is that there will be games where you can wish for Pact to kill an Eidolon of the Great Revel and then keep winning at a very low cost. And that's why I was playing Slaughter Pact for a while. But people kept on boarding it in and then being like, well, I don't like having to tap 3 mana to kill my opponent's creatures. That's not what it was there for. But people just like didn't use the card correctly. I ultimately decided that when I added white, that I wanted more copies of Prismatic Ending, and I cut the Slaughter Pact. But it's still a fine card. You just need to use it correctly. I also need to get it signed by Kev Walker. Engineered Explosives. I talked above about how it's really for Wish, but so on top of Mishra's Baubles, these are cards where I would like to get the originals. I don't like having the reprints here, but they're just really, really expensive. And I don't know. I do love the original art. I'm not trying to defend these at all. I think the art's a little bit worse on these, but it's just the price point. I can't justify right now in my life. So maybe this year I'll get an Explosives or two for next year. We'll see. Additional copies of Ave. And then Tolaria West is a card I tested for a little while. A lot of people were on me about how I should be testing it, so I gave it a good run. I played it for probably a month and a half, maybe 2. It was always fine, but it was never quite the card I wanted it to be. And when I added the Force Negations in, this was one of the cards that was cut. It's just, I don't think the 21st land was ever necessary. And when it was the Tolaria West, there were very few hands where it being a land mattered. So I ended up cutting it for one of the forces. We're back down to 20. It's been fine. Especially when you have 8 cantrips plus 4 bobble. 12 cantrips is a lot. Additional copies of our lands down here. So this I included, even though it's the wrong set. It's also the wrong reprint. This I included to talk about how great Haruya's customer service is. They shipped me this, even though I ordered the Return to Ravnica version. And I sent them photos, and they're like, oh yeah, we definitely shipped you the wrong one. You keep it, we'll ship you the correct one. And wow, Haruya, just amazing customer service. That's definitely them doing the right thing. I didn't have to pay $14 to ship this back across the other half of the world. I will continue to buy from them as long as they're open. What an amazing company. And if you're interested, down here there's links for the mini token pack that I'll just open this up in the meantime. Hard Perfect Fits. I talked about those flattening foils. I use Dragon Shields. I'm a proponent of deck boxes. I am not paid to show this. I just think that they're the best thing on the market. So definitely use those if you have high-end cards. I keep my cards super tight in them, and they do flatten. And then Silly Arcade Dice. These aren't anything special. They're just a friend gave them to me as kids, and I've used them with all of my decks ever since. So Silly Arcade Dice are definitely the way to go. And here you can grab the Epic Storm mini token pack. I was talking about the Slime Time tokens. Here they are. Power and Toughness already built in if you're interested in that. And yeah, that's what I've got. So hopefully you enjoyed this today. A little bit shorter than yesterday's video. I ended up losing my voice for a little bit yesterday because I talked so much. But thank you for watching. I do appreciate you. Keep storming, and happy holidays.
Hey, Bryant Cook here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, but also follow the social media channels down below. If you want to support this content directly, I would recommend going to theepicstorm.com/shop. And if you need a little bit of assistance with the Epic Storm to get to that next level, I would recommend going to theepicstorm.com/tutoring. Don't worry, there's more great content coming right up.